regular town meeting for the town of Edgewood to order. And the first thing on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico and the Zia symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Before we move on with the approval of the agenda, I would like to take roll to find who's here. I see that Councilor Jaramillo is here.
Here.
Councilor Abraham.
Here.
And Councilor Holly.
Present.
And we also have the clerk treasurer and the deputy clerk, as well as the representative of the town's attorney. First item is approval of the agenda. We have a long agenda tonight, and I really do want to get done with the business of the town before we move to discussion items, which is why the agenda looks the way it does this evening. And I ask that you approve it. Make a motion to approve this evening's agenda.
Second. One change, I would like to make a motion to move item 4A, public comment, right before action items, so we can hear the public before taking action. I second that.
I hear a motion and a second to move an item on the agenda. How do you vote? Councilor Jaramillo?
Aye.
Councilor Holly?
Nay.
Councilor Abraham?
Aye.
And I vote nay. Motion dies for lack of majority. We have a motion and a second on the approval of the agenda. How do you vote? Councilor Abraham?
Aye.
Councilor Jaramillo?
Aye.
Councilor Holly?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. We have an agenda. First item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion?
Mayor Pro Tem, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda, removing item 2A.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? I'll call one more time for a second. I'm not hearing a second on a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Audrey is muted. Sorry about that, I was on mute. Okay, so we have a motion by Councilor Abraham to approve the consent agenda, taking out item A. Yes, is that
That's the
correct?
motion that I heard. Do I hear a second?
Okay, I will second that and then discussion.
Okay. Let's hear discussion.
Councilor Abraham.
I don't have any discussion. It just needs to be removed as an invalid meeting.
Okay. Then my question relates to the P&Z report for the months of November, December, and January. I wasn't really sure what to do about those since the members of the P&Z board terms had already expired. They really weren't valid members to make decisions at those times. So I guess maybe legal counsel can advise us. We did not have a legal board at that time.
I'm going to say that that's not correct. You do have a legal board. They serve as holdovers until their successors are appointed and qualified.
In looking at the ordinance, it's very clear that they serve 1 year or 2 year terms. There's nothing about holdover or remaining until they're replaced.
That is provided by the state constitution.
And so it states what?
The state constitution states, it's Article 20, Section 2, states that every officer, unless removed, shall hold his office until his successor has duly qualified. So they act as holdovers. There is not a vacancy in the office. They continue to act until their successors are qualified. In this case.
Okay, and is that for every elected official in the state?
That applies to every elected official in the state. It applies to appointed officials in the state unless somewhere it provides otherwise.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Councilor Abraham.
Aye.
Councilor Harmio.
Aye.
Councilor Hawley.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. We have approved everything on the consent agenda except item A. Action items. We have a presentation of the 2020 third and fourth quarter wastewater treatment report, followed by questions from the governing body.
I'm not seeing Mr. Hall on just yet.
I'm not seeing Mr. Hall on just yet.
Can we take a quick recess?
We can take a quick recess to get Mr. Hall on. I don't know why he has not joined us quite yet this evening.
Here it is. He's having trouble logging on. So can
He's
we take
having
a
trouble
5-minute?
logging on.
Yes.
Okay.
Can we take 5?
I would like to ask for a 5-minute recess while we get Mr. Hall connected. We're in recess. Is everyone in agreement?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. We're recessed for 5 minutes.
Can you get you to turn your mic up a little bit? I'm getting feedback from everybody except for you. Yeah.
I don't have a mic.
Oh, that would be why. Okay.
I'm mic'd to the phone.
Okay, yeah.
I will scream.
Just
Or I will try to
chance.
I will try to get louder.
Okay.
Actually, I think proper English is more loud, but whatever. Take a moment. I'll be right back. Mr. Hall is on. Great. All right. I would like to come back into order. Mr. Hall has joined us. I see Councilor Abraham is present. Councilor Hawley is present. I do not see Councilor Jaramillo. Councilor. Aha, Councilor Jaramillo is back with us. Okay, we have everyone back and we are ready to continue. We were continuing with item 3A, presentation of the 2020 third and fourth quarter wastewater treatment plant report, followed by questions. And the subset of this item is discussion, consideration, and action on acceptance of the Town of Edgewood 2020 third quarter wastewater treatment report, as well as discussion, consideration, and action on acceptance of the Town of Edgewood 2020 fourth quarter wastewater treatment report. Mr. Hall, I'll let you present.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me okay? Okay. I just thought I'd give a quick overview, if you will, of where we've kind of been with the plant and where we are now. In March of 2020, we replaced 2 of the cassettes with brand new modules. And then a couple months later, we were did the same with the third cassette. Initially, we saw very good results, and I was getting close to the point where I thought we could start reusing the water, and then I started to see some turbidity increases that concerned me. So we held off for a few more rounds of testing, and fast forwarding to now, we recently pulled the first 2 cassettes that went in with the new plates in March, and we found several tears, as I mentioned in my report. We have, I think there's a couple of reasons for the tears. Obviously, I think you guys are aware we have issues with the existing screens. We're in the process of trying to replace those screens. And as such, debris getting in the plant is going to cause issues with tears to the membranes. I also think part of it may be the extreme hardness and scaling of the water causes buildup of the scaling to the point that some of that will break off with the air, and then you've got these jagged pieces with sharp corners rolling around in the water with air, causing tears to the plates. We saw about 70 tears out of the 200 of the one cassette, well, really both cassettes, so 140 approximately out of 400 plates that we checked. Out of those, I would estimate probably 60% of them are repairable. So there is a way to repair those plates based upon where the tear is and how big the tear is. Probably 40% are not repairable because of where the tears are located. So it's unusual, to say the least, to get, this short a period of time from new membrane plates. I've got membranes in plants that have been in for years, 10, 11, 13. I got one that's 14 years. So this is very unique and a bit of a challenge. We've got some spare cassettes. I'm working on an operational plan moving forward to try to deal with what's going on right now in the interim until the new screens come online, which should provide some relief to the tears. Until we can meet permit on a routine, regular basis, we continue to not reuse the water and have not and will not reuse the water. So I guess, I don't know, I guess that's just the overview I wanted to bring up, and if there's any questions, I'd be happy to do what I can to answer them.
Mr. Hall, thank you for being here. I do have a lot of questions, but you bring up some new ones too. So I know we have funded those screens quite a while back, and I think we went out for to purchase those. Have they been purchased? And do you have them?
We do not have the screens yet. My belief is at this time I know they've been selected. I believe they've been purchased. Juan or Carla can correct me if I'm wrong. And they are in the design approval stage right now. I think the hope is they will go out to bid for construction within the next month. Is that a fair one? Yeah.
Yes,
He's
that's,
shaking his head, yes.
that's correct, yes.
Okay, so any estimation of when they might actually be installed?
Um,
6 months.
At this point, I probably fall at the earliest.
Okay.
I mean, you've got to bid it, you've got to award it. They've got a timeline to complete it. Maybe that's being overly optimistic, even.
Okay, all right. And the next thing is, we know the hard water has been an issue for a long time. We actually had a PER that recommended we get away from this type of membranes because of the hardness of the water and the lack of our membranes lasting. We thought it was just because it was scaling up, but are there any ways we can prevent that breaking off? I know there's supposed to be a cleaning process that happens quite regularly. Is that what's causing them to break off? And
I don't believe the cleaning process is what's causing them to break off. We are doing a regular, routine, weekly cleaning of the membranes that we use hydrochloric acid to help, obviously mainly with the hardness, and then sodium hypochlorite, which helps with the organic fouling. When we pull the plates apart, what I see is a buildup of a thick around the seam of the membrane and on the cassette itself, the frame, as opposed to the actual plates, where there is a little bit on the plates, but for the most part, it's around the outside. And I personally, I think that's where it's breaking off. It's hard for me to determine how much of the tearing that we're seeing is a direct result of the screens and how much is a result of the breaking off. These are just things that we're seeing as we tear these cassettes apart and visually inspect them.
okay. So do we have any way to address that particular issue?
I have talked with Juan and Carla about a dip tank, and that I think would be beneficial to the plant. A dip tank would be a separate tank that sits by itself, where we could remove an entire cassette and place in the tank and do a really deep chemical clean on the cassettes and the plates. The way it's done now is in place, or in situ they call it. So you can get some cleaning, but you can't get the level of clean that you can get if you have a separate tank that you can let the cassette in, and you can control the pH, and you can control the time. Obviously, we have water continuously coming in the plant, so when we do the cleans, we're limited by a window of time where we have to put the plant back online to be able to treat the water that's coming in. So I do think a dip tank would help. It is a challenge. I mean, honestly, when we put the new membranes in, I was surprised at how quickly I started to see turbidity issues. I've been doing this 32 years, and Edgewood is a very unique plant.
Yeah, yeah. We do understand that. So if we have a dip tank, can one operator do that by themselves? Or will you need two to pull the cassettes and dip them?
Pulling a cassette would require two people. They don't necessarily have to both be operators, but there would need to be two people, and that's what we've done in the past. Since I've been involved, we haven't pulled any cassettes alone. There is stuff that can be done alone safely, but pulling cassettes is not one of them.
Okay. All right. I'm just trying to look at what type of, not just maintenance, but personnel we may need in the future to help with this. Do you have any recommendations?
I think that most of the readings and the daily stuff can be done by one person, but there are a lot of the maintenance issues, which this plant has a lot of them, obviously, that require two people. I mean, two people there all the time would be great, but I think that one person there with another person coming in to help pull a cassette and place it in the dip tank or replace it or whatever, that's certainly needed, and that's what we've done in the past. It's either been me or it's been another employee of the town that's helped.
Okay. All right. And is it okay by NMED for two uncertified people to be operating that plant? I'm a little concerned that we don't have a certified operator there daily or at least weekly or something.
I guess that's maybe more, my understanding and the way I read the rule is the plant needs to be, the decisions made for the plant need to be done by a certified operator. Ideally, you would have a certified operator at a plant all the time. Bigger plants have that because they have the personnel and they have the funding available to do that, but it's pretty commonplace at these small plants. There's just not the resources available of certified operators. I can tell you, since I've been involved, any process control decisions, any changes in the plant have been done under my direction.
Okay. All right. The other thing is it true that certified operators are extremely hard to come by?
Yes,
Yeah.
they are.
Okay. So our chance of getting one is not very great.
I don't know if I can answer that other than I from my understanding, and Juan and Carla, they have been actively advertising for this position for quite some time. I can tell you in my company, that's always the struggle, is to find operators, and frankly what we've had to do is bring in good people that aren't necessarily certified and train them and get them certified, because it's most good operators that are certified, they're already working somewhere, and a lot of them are working at multiple places because there is a shortage.
Okay. So I know that's been one of the things you've been tasked to do was to help get Mike Garcia certified, and what's the progress on that?
So every time I go out there, I spend some time with Mike, not only formal training, but just talking through him about not only what we're doing, but why we're doing it, and explaining the process, and explaining, this is what we're doing, and this is the reason why, these are the factors involved. Unfortunately, he hasn't been able to test. My understanding is that there has not been any testing in New Mexico since the COVID era. I don't know if that's March or April. I think that they're trying to roll some of that out right now, but I'm not familiar with the extent of that. I'm sorry.
Mayor,
Would it
Council,
be possible for
if I
him
may?
to travel to another state to take tests?
Counselor, one moment.
Yeah.
Mr. Torres has a comment.
Mayor, Council, so with respect to the testing, Larry's absolutely right. They did. NMED is the one who administers the test for New Mexico certifications, and when COVID came out, they basically stopped all testing. Larry is also correct. They did start doing limited testing last week, and those were for people who were already signed up for tests, I want to say of March of 2020. So we can get applications in. One of the things that we've been trying to do also is Rural Water Association, they usually kind of put together like a week-long course before the test, and they don't have anything on their schedule as of yet. Like I said, the testing that NMED is putting out right now is extremely limited. If you go to their website and you look up the testing, they even hope to, they're hoping to get more applications approved for testing sometime in March. So it is,
Okay.
it has been on hold, and we are going to try and get Mike in this year as soon as it opens up.
Okay, so there's not a possibility of sending him somewhere else for testing?
My understanding is you could get him tested in another state, but then he would still have to come back in and take some sort of reciprocity test in New Mexico.
Okay, all right. Okay, so my next question is actually about the report. I see in the third quarter report, in August of 2020, the TKN number jumped from 1.3 to 16, yet that is one of the months that the fecal coliform is below 1. What happened there?
So if my memory is correct, we did have some issue with some foaming at the plant. We pumped. We had to pump some sludge over from one tank over to this tank. You'll see in the footnote there that according to condition 37 of the permit, when you have an incident like that, you conduct a second sample within 30 days, which we did. It did not exceed the total nitrogen limits, and therefore we did not enact the contingency plan. As far as the fecal coliform goes, that's really not dependent on the total nitrogen. I mean, honestly, that is just it's just a matter of killing the fecal coliform, which right now we're doing with liquid sodium hypochlorite. So that doesn't. You could have that where you have a higher total nitrogen and a non-detect on the fecal coliform. It just means that we had possibly some biological issues or a bad sample on the total nitrogen, which is why you pull a second one. But at the same time, we had a good residual on our chlorine, on our effluent, and that's why we didn't have any fecal coliform.
Okay, so what were the levels of the second sample? Do you know?
I don't have it in front of me, but I can look it up. And I believe it should have been in that. I don't know. I can look it up for you, and I'll do that.
Okay. And then The other question that keeps just plaguing me is, how is it on every monthly flow data report, we have less gallons received than gallons going out to the lagoon? It almost looks like we're making water in there somehow.
I understand your concern, and so let me speak to that. We do a lot with flow meters, and I can tell you that you can have 2 flow meters reading the same water, and there's always going to be a discrepancy, okay? Now that said, there are acceptable discrepancies. The kind of the industry standard for wastewater is the flow meter should read within 10%. And I believe the permit calls for that as well. Part of what we're dealing with at this plant in particular is we don't have an influent and an effluent meter. We have 4 meters that we're dealing with here. So we have an influent meter, we have 2 permeate meters, 1 for each pump, and then we have a reuse meter. Okay, and so the effluent is derived by totaling the 2 permeate meters together and subtracting the reuse meter. When I say reuse meter, I'm misspeaking. It's the utility water meter, not the reuse meter. So we take the 2 permeate meter readings, the total of those, and we subtract the utility water reading because that's water that's being recirculated back in the plant and is going through those permeate pump meters again. So it's getting retotalized, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So while I agree with you, these numbers, so I did some little quick math here and there. They range from about 6% to 10% discrepancy. Some might be a little higher. I didn't get a chance to do them all. But like I calculated December of 2020, the 697, 802,000, and the 777,905. And that was about 10% difference. So when you're dealing with 4 meters, it is possible to have all 4 of those meters reading within 10% and still get this discrepancy. If you have 1 meter that's 8% off one way and 1 meter that's 3% off the opposite way, that's 11%. So that said, we do have a new influent meter, and the plan was to install that as part of the screen construction. And so we do plan on doing that, and it may change some of these numbers, but it may not.
Okay. And approximately, okay, because then here's my other question is, if that is 10% higher and it has to do with the meter thing, approximately how much percentage is solid that's removed? Or is it part of these numbers? Where do the solids get calculated anywhere or not?
So the solids would actually, it gets a little difficult because you're dealing with, when you're talking about flow, you're talking about liquid, and when you're talking, so that's a wet, liquid number. When you're talking about solids, typically it's calculated as a dry weight. So on this report here, the solids are not reflected on here. The solids that leave the plant would be part of the WAS reading, the waste activated sludge reading. And so when we use the press to dewater the sludge, there is a meter that calculates that. I haven't included it on the report because it's not part of the permit that asks for it on the report, but that's the solids part.
Okay. And then because you're putting chlorine in these things to bring the numbers down, what is the maximum level of chlorine that can be used to bring the numbers down to get them to meet our permit and not be harmful to the environment, the plants, and the people who are in there?
It's a good question. Typically, when you say chlorine, you know, it sparks all kinds of concern about the things you just mentioned. It's very negligible. So we typically in wastewater you measure what's called total chlorine residual, and in drinking water you measure free chlorine residual. We measure them both just because it gives an indication of what's going on. And just to give you some numbers, typically we see total chlorines in the 1.5 milligrams per liter to 2.5 milligrams per liter. And then we see the free chlorine in the neighborhood of 0.2 to 0.5. It varies a little bit, but just to give you some perspective, the drinking water MCL, which is the highest level, the MCL is the limit. The maximum contaminant level is what the MCL stands for. Chlorine in drinking water is 4.0 milligrams per liter. So we're not even approaching that and that's free chlorine. That's not total chlorine. So we're not approaching that on the wastewater. The other factor is that the chlorine that we're adding that's going out in the pond and it's sitting. The pond has 7.5 million gallon capacity approximately. And I think I calculated at 30,000 gallons per day, the detention time in that pond would be about 250 days. So there's no chlorine left, for certainly. It wouldn't last very long. Sunlight, it will oxidize anything in the water, and it will get used up and converted into another substance. So there's no chlorine left. It's very, very negligible, the amount of chlorine that we're adding to the water.
Okay, all right. And then I had received some pictures from a concerned citizen that indicates our pond is almost full, and I noticed we haven't discharged any water lately. Is there a reason haven't discharged water from the pond and have let it get so full?
Yeah, I can. So the permit allows for 24 inches of freeboard. Once we're not supposed to get to within 24 inches of freeboard. We did discharge some on the alternate disposal site in November. To be honest with you, at that point, I was still kind of hopeful that we would be able to start reusing the water sooner. It really did kind of surprise me, the issues that we had with the plates, because it's just so to say it's not normal is an under exaggeration. So, you know, the part of it is a balancing game between making sure we stay below that freeboard level, and I guess my hopefulness that we would be able to start reusing water, and so we would have water to reuse. That said, there are conditions in the permit, as you know, that restrict us from using the alternate disposal site on frozen ground. We can't have severe ponding. We can't have any water running off the ground. So Mike and I have discussed where the level of the pond is, and we had a plan in place. Obviously, we weren't able to do anything over the really cold snap that you just had, but we've had some 50 degree days, and we were able to put some out during the day, having to turn it off at night, obviously. And we do have some good weather coming up in the 60s. So we have a mechanism to dispose of it, and frankly, we can dispose of it fairly quickly. Like I mentioned, the calculations I did at 30,000 gallons a day, if the pond was empty, it would take 250 days to fill the pond. So yes, it is getting full, and it does need to be disposed of, and we are in the process of doing that, is the short answer.
What is the level it's at right now? And how soon will it build up? at 30 gallons a day?
I would estimate right now it's probably about 28 to 30 inches, so we're getting close to the 24. So at, hang on a second here. So this is an average that I calculated because the pond is sloped. So as it gets higher, 1 inch is more water, obviously, because of the slope of the pond. So there's about 62,000 gallons in an inch. That's average of the pond. So if we had a 30,000 gallons day, we would rise an inch about in 2 days. But like I said, we were able to dispose of some today. I suspect, looking at the weather, we'll be able to do that moving forward. So I understand the concern, but we're not going to do a illegal discharge out onto the ground. I can assure you of that.
Okay, because we did have that in the past. That did happen.
I understand, and that will not happen.
Okay, and then the last thing on here, I see that you say that NMED has cleared all the violations except for item 3. And both reports say exactly the same thing. Construction of an impervious surface, sludge composting. This item is nearly constructed. How nearly are we now? Is it finished? Is that condition removed? And what's the status of our permit?
Mayor, Council, if I may.
Go ahead.
Mr. Hall, one moment. Mr.
Mr.
Torres?
It is complete. It has been completed. We were waiting on a valve, and we have substantial completion. So we were waiting on a couple components. There was a couple punch list items, but that is, it's substantially complete, and we just have to send something to NMED to have them basically verify and say that all issues have been resolved.
So my question is, have the as-built drawings been submitted to NMED for approval?
Today.
Yes, they were submitted today.
Today?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I guess that's all I have for now. Thank you for explaining the difference in numbers, because that was just driving me crazy.
You're welcome. I understand.
So, okay, that's all my questions.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem and Mr. Hall, I had submitted questions earlier and have quite a few of those, and mainly coming from the community. I am not an expert in this area. Ask me about financial things or compliance and I can answer, but this is very technical, as we know, so I'm glad you're here with us tonight. I feel like this should be something that we could hear from you every month, because just to make sure that, progress and steps forward are being made. So the first question I have is what's the status of the permit? What's holding it back?
Mayor, Council, if I may.
Mr. Torres?
So the permit is sitting with NMED. We have submitted it, and they are editing, revising it, and they will release it hopefully in April and May for us to publish and get it out there to the public. But we're waiting on NMED because they're conducting their final review.
Have they brought up any questions or problems, or do you know what's taking them a while?
There's been some definite things they want to change. One of the things that they wanted to change was taking the control out of NMED's hands and taking it out of the responsibility away from NMED and putting it on us for when we do upgrades. So like we've got that whole second train that's not online. But with as designed right now, that plant can do 150,000 gallons per day. Right now, with the first train, we can do 75,000. So they reduced the number of our permit from 150 to 75,000, and they're putting the burden on the town to say, hey, we're at 80% of our permit level now. We're going to have to activate a new train or activate a new cassette, do something. Whereas in the old permit, it was up to NMAD to say, hey, Edgewood, you need to do this. Now they're putting that burden on us. I think that was probably their biggest one. Larry, do you recall the other things that they were talking about?
No, I mean, early on, I think there was some discussion about the different, where we were reusing the water, as I recall, but I think that all got worked out, and that was early on. So that's the latest one that they came back with, and yeah, so we hope to see it soon, but basically it's in their court.
Okay, thank you. And then, is the alternative wastewater reuse distribution system completely operable as designed?
To my knowledge, yes, it is. And I went through that in the permit before we ever started it up. And yes, to my knowledge, that is in compliant with paragraph 12 of the permit.
All right. All of the signage, paint, fencing, are those elements in the alternative wastewater reuse distribution in compliance as well?
Yes, and we did do some of that when I came out. I think the signs were in place, but I know we did some paint marking. We also locked the hydrants around town, the reuse hydrants. We just put locks on them, and we did various things like that to try to, to secure it a little better, I guess.
Okay. And then there's another question here about limits excessive ponding and stipulates in paragraph 12 that disposal shall not exceed the water consumptive needs of the crop. The distribution areas are kill zones. What is the crop in the alternative reuse plans that NMED has?
I couldn't find a definition to that. On the reuse side, they don't define it as crop. What I found is it was defined as dust control and town-owned properties.
Okay. The next question is the exceedances of chlorides in the discharge from the addition of sodium hyperchlorite inhibit biological processes. Does this constitute reuse or is it continuing emergency discharge?
I'm not 100% sure I understand the question. I think what you're asking is the sodium hypochlorite that we're using to inhibit the biological process going to cause exceedances of chlorides? And the answer is no. It's so negligible compared to the amount of water that I don't know if you could. That's not going to cause us to exceed the chlorides. No.
Okay. Yeah, and I appreciate you giving us the numbers and the ranges on that earlier. The permit requires visual inspection of the impoundment monthly for conditions that may result in an unauthorized discharge. It says if 2 feet of freeboard cannot be maintained, the permittee shall enact the contingency plan. Is that done, and are you content with the current level of the containment pond?
Yes, it is being done. We do the monthly inspections of the pond. We keep a record of that. Am I content? I am as of right now. Like I mentioned earlier, it is getting full, and we are aware of that, and we are actively working on lowering that based upon the weather forecast. I'm not concerned that it's going to be an issue.
Okay. are the wind gauge and data logger installed if the greater than 20 mile per hour prohibition observed?
So I checked all that initially when I came. That particular paragraph of the permit, and there is equipment out there to measure not only the wind, but there's other things required in that paragraph, and there is a device out there to measure that. It does have some issues with reading back to the computer, the telemetry portion of that. So we haven't used it and wouldn't use it until we got that issue resolved. The answer to the second question is yes, we haven't done any of the that type of disposal since I've been at the plant, and I don't see the need for it with the disposal. But if we did need to do it, yes, we would definitely follow that paragraph of the permit with regard to the greater than 20 mile per hour prohibition.
Okay. Is the solid waste drying area complete, cured, documented, accepted, and when?
So yeah, that's I think what Juan addressed. It is complete, and everything's been turned in. So now I guess we're waiting on NMED to NMAD to write the letter saying they're good to go. Is that right, Juan?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, very good. All of the actions in paragraphs 20 to 24 require accurate readings of influent volume. Is the gauge accurate? And I think that you already explained the discrepancy to governing body member Abraham, right?
Yes.
Is the gauge accurate, do you think?
I believe it's within 10%. So the flow meter that's there is a what they call a mag meter. So it can be difficult to calibrate. So there are ways to do it, but I believe that it's within 10% accurate, which is what's required.
Okay. Is it difficult to calibrate? Is that something that could be done?
Yeah, because they're in pipe, the way you have to calibrate them is basically in line. So you have to basically measure a known standard against what the meter is reading, which I've done, and it's again, I believe it's within 10%. I guess we'll see when we put the new one in. But again, I understand the concern for when you look at these readings and you see these discrepancies. I understand it, but when you look at the number of flow meters that we're dealing with, it can happen. There is an explanation for it.
Okay. And are you familiar with the asset management plan provided by contract from Dennis Engineering in approximately 2015? Is this facility being maintained by guidance of such documents? And what are the upcoming items that we need to know about?
And so the rest of these questions are going to be coming at me right now. I got back in my office about 6:15 and got to number 8. So,
Okay.
So I can't recall it specifically. When I first came on, I know Carla sent me a lot of stuff, and I mean a lot. I did a lot of reading, so I don't recall this one specifically. The answer is no. So I can't speak to, obviously if we're following it. I can tell you that things change, and I am heavily, I understand the plant and I understand the issues, and I am adept at prioritizing issues, which is what I've done from the beginning, which is, why I addressed the fecal coliform issue that we were having from the beginning, and put the sodium hypochlorite system in to alleviate that. And so I feel like I'm right now working in a bit of a reactive mode, to be honest with you, from the beginning. And as such, dealing with things by order of priority.
Okay. I guess I would say from a fiduciary perspective and governance perspective, it would be good for us to be thinking a little long term as well, so that we know what's needed, you know, as far as funding, budget, what we can do to help so that it's not just reactive. And that's just, you know, another reason why I would like to hear from our operator every month as well, just to make sure things are being, you know, moving forward and that we're looking long term as well. But I know that you've had your hands full with being reactive to things as well. So do we have written safety procedures?
I think that's more of a question for the town. I mean, obviously I'm a contractor for the town. I have safety procedures within my company that we follow, but I certainly would not allow anything that I deem unsafe to happen, but I don't know as far as a written safety procedure within the town of Edgewood.
So, Mayor, Council, we do have something in place, and if you recall, we had Palms and Associates come out when we first took over operations from the plant, conduct a safety audit, and that was one of the things that they recommended that we did and get something in place for our operators. And at that time, Mr. Butler and Mr. Garcia put their heads together, and they came up with something that's functional for that actual plant. We had since have had a subsequent inspection from Palms and Associate to look at it. And keep in mind, their inspection, they're basically doing the equivalent of an OSHA inspection, just to make sure we're in compliant and we're not, you know, going to put anyone in danger. Because as we've learned from other plants and accidents around the state, plants are, when they're engineered for, you know, operational standards, not necessarily they're not necessarily designed to OSHA standards or safety. A good example, the Ruidoso plant where the grate lifted up and the guy fell through, you know. So they had to go through and do those type of inspections. So we're kind of, we've been on track to have kind of follow-up inspections to make sure we are safe, we are compliant, our employees are taken care of across all departments in the town. But to my knowledge, yes, there is something in place for that plant.
Okay. Did they include, I'm sure Palms included risk and threat assessment?
On some aspects, yes, and I think other aspects of the threat assessment and risk also play into the overall emergency maintenance, which also includes us in our cooperation with Santa Fe County Fire. And so that's something I know we're working on. Santa Fe County Fire has some plans in place for us, but we're not included on that at this point, so we're trying to work to get something in place. But our plans do include, you know, basically we have brought out the fire department, we've brought out the different people to show them the plant, show them here's the access, here's what we need to do. If this happens, here's the turnoffs. So we've done things of that nature, but I don't know if we have anything formal in place with Santa Fe County at this time for stuff like that.
Okay. If there is a spill, how do we know as far as, you know, who's in charge of cleanup, who has authority to contact emergency services, what is the contingency plan? But basically, if there is a spill, how would we know?
But when you say we, are you referring to the council?
Yeah, well, not just council, but the town, I mean, you and administration.
Well, if there was a spill, I am required by the permit to notify NMED, which I would do. I think you can see from my reports and the numbers that you're getting, I'm an above board kind of person. So I do the best I can to do things right, and you know, sometimes things happen, and then you follow the rules and you deal with them.
Sure. How would we be alerted to that? Like, how would it be discovered, though, in the first place?
Well, it would, like I said, I would call NMED and I would put it in the report to NMED. I mean, they already know about it, and you get a copy of the report. My understanding is it's on the website as well. So I guess that would be the way that
Do you
you
think that's
and the
something
town
that
would
Mike? Do you think that's something that Mike would be reporting to you?
I do. I really do. I absolutely do. I have worked alongside Mike for a while now, and I think I understand your question, and my answer is yes. I do believe that. If we had an issue, again, and I've been doing this 32 years, so I go to plants and I see things that most people don't see. So it's hard. Well, I'm saying it's hard to. I do believe Mike would notify me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know if he saw it, of course he would, right? I mean, we know his integrity, he would do that. But I think the concern is more, you know, would it be discovered right away? You know, is the timing, are you out there enough? Is he out there enough daily, you know, to be able to identify?
Mike's out there every day, Monday through Friday, barring holidays and sometimes weekends. You know, and he's been out there. I mean, I get it, but Mike and I talk regularly, almost daily, and we've had issues at the plant, and I have dealt with them, and we've had an emergency at the plant that after we put the new plates in, we couldn't get them clean. Mike did the cleaning procedures and it didn't work, and I had him do a different procedure, which he did, and that didn't work, and that was mid-morning. I don't remember the day of the week, but we couldn't move water through the plant because the membranes were plugged. And I was at the plant in Edgewood that evening, and I stayed at the plant all night long doing a clean and got the membranes back and got them going. So I just use it as, you know, it's something that's happened and that we've had to deal with, and it's part of running a treatment plant. Sometimes things go wrong and you have to deal with them.
Okay. Let's see here. When was the last time the turbidity meter was calibrated?
So it's calibrated monthly. We've got a procedure for that, and it's calibrated every month. The turbidity meter that's actually there is a new laser type turbidity meter, so it's really new technology. It doesn't lose calibration. I have personally calibrated and checked it, and it's correct. I wish it wasn't, but it is. I wish it was a little lower, but it's correct.
And what is the current chemical and biological state of the containment pond?
I can't answer that because we don't test the containment pond, and we're not required to under the permit.
Okay.
It as an operator, it wouldn't be worse for the things that we measure. There's still treatment that would go on in that pond. It's facultative, it's a different type of treatment, but there's still treatment going on. You can't make BOD in a pond like that. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I cannot tell you what it is because we don't test for it, because it's not required.
Are you taking and testing 6-hour aggregated samples on a regular basis?
Yes. Yes, we have an automatic sampler. It is flow-paced, and that is the way we were performing the samples, exactly the way that it's stated in the permit.
Great. And let's see, what about the conditions from clients, basically the effluent? Is that ever sampled as far as what's going into the plant?
Control of the quality or quantity of client effluent. I'm sorry, I don't understand the question, I guess. Are you talking, when you say client effluent?
Well, basically, I think what it means is what's coming from the various places, restaurants, hotel, wherever, is that tested? Because that's what's then coming into the plant.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So we haven't done much of that at the plant, but there has been some testing done by an outside entity in the past that Carla has provided to me, and I can't remember who it is off the top of my head, but I've seen reports of it. It has been done. I want to say on an annual basis. Is that? But I might be wrong about that.
So that was Sangre de Cristo, and they have not done testing yet this go around.
When was the last time one?
I don't recall off the top of my head.
Has it been like years or months?
It's probably around a year, more or less. Not multiple years, just one.
Okay. Reuse water, do you think that, is there a goal date in mind? Do you think that can be changed anytime before the fall?
I hope so. I know that's not a very good answer. Again, I thought we were there when we put the plates in. I've never seen this level. And I mean, I have ran and I have consulted at a lot of treatment plants. And this little plant, this little tiny plant is quite challenging. I guess the best way I could answer that is I am doing everything I can to try to get to that point, and I am frustrated that we're not at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Can I say something real quick? Mr. Hall, I appreciate everything that you're doing, and we do know we have a most difficult plant to run. And I think that is my concern, why we would like a little more feedback. And we know it's a difficult plant. How can we optimize it? What are the best things that you would recommend for us to optimize its efficiency, whether it be personnel training, equipment? What do we need?
Some of it, I mean, it's in flux, right? If you'd asked me that question 6 months ago, 5 months ago, I would have had a different answer, because I believed at that time that we had solved the membrane issue because we had put new plates in. So I guess it's not enough data. I'm not trying to use that as an excuse. It's the truth. Based on what I'm seeing now with the membranes, I think there's a way to try to manage it as best we can by have a plan and a process in place where we efficiently pull the cassettes on a more frequent basis, and go through them, repair and replace the ones that we need to. And also, implemented, I've done a lot of stuff operationally, like implementing, so now instead of just randomly pulling a cassette, we'll go through a procedure where we will use a turbidity to determine which is the worst cassette. So we've got 3 cassettes in there. Which one do we pull? We use a turbidity meter to determine which one's got the highest turbidity, and we pull that one. So we've done some stuff like that, and I do believe that we will get to a place where we're more efficient and we can run the plant, and we're working through that right now. I mean, obviously the screen is going to change things. I don't know how much until it's in and running. I'm hopeful that, I mean, if we could get through the tearing of the membranes, I mean, that's the heart of the plant. You know, we can't have a plant with membranes that are torn. So that's, when I said I'm reactive, you know, that's what I'm reacting to and trying to take care of what's on fire, and it's the torn membranes and replacing them. So I got a possible lead on a plant that has some cassettes like Edgewood that we might be able to get. They replace their cassettes, so they have a bunch of cassettes that are just sitting on the ground basically. So I haven't heard back from them, but I'm pursuing stuff like that to try to get, if I had more cassettes on the ground, if I had 2 or 3 on the ground that we could rebuild and ready to set in place, then we could do multiple at a time. So I'm trying to employ different operational strategies to make the plant better, make it more efficient, and hopefully come up with an answer to your question in the future of how do we do that moving forward.
Is that all you had, Sherry? Okay. What if we had a water treatment plant? Would that help things?
If you didn't have the hardness, it would certainly help things. So that said, in order to remove hardness, if it's truly calcium carbonate, which I understand is, there's limited ways you can do that in a water treatment plant. It's basically reverse osmosis is what you're talking about to remove that. But if we didn't have the hard water, yes. I mean, I can tell you that this plant's twin I have been told that the membranes have been in place for 14 years. So it's the exact twin. I have reached out. I have a lot of contacts, and I have talked to many of them about this plant to try to figure it out and resolve these issues.
It's something that I've proposed in the past, a resolution just to look into the possibility of partnering with EPCOR, for example, on the water treatment plant. That possibly could help the wastewater treatment plant as well. So I was just curious about that part of it.
If it removes the hardness or dramatically lowers the hardness, yes, it would help the wastewater plant, in my opinion.
I know it's something the citizens would really want because of, they run into issues as well. We all have to have, water softeners and go through salts, and there are other technologies that people use as well, but I think a treatment plant is something to at least research and check into. So, but we'll see about that in the future. This question is, why are the lab samples not at the right temperature? I guess when they're getting to the lab, just not being the right temperature. Maybe that's something we could check into.
Okay, to my knowledge, they are. They're on ice. So we did have that issue come up that NMED actually asked that question. That was months and months and months ago. And the answer to the question was Mike was pulling the samples, putting them on ice, and transporting them to Albuquerque. And there wasn't enough time between Edgewood and Albuquerque to get them down to the temperature that they were supposed to be. So since then, we're kind of doing a little different to just try to get the temperature down on the report. So I will look into that. I don't have an answer to that, but I will look into it.
Okay, we're almost to the end here. Detuning the plant in December report, why are you decreasing the capacity of the plant? If that's what that means.
What number is that?
35.
What number? 35. Detuning the plant in the December report. Why are you decreasing the capacity of the plant? I don't understand what it's referring to be honest with you. Let me look at the report here. I apologize, but I do not understand the question.
Okay. As far as the capacity, are you decreasing the capacity at all?
No, I don't even know how I would decrease the capacity. I mean, we have, as far as hydraulic capacity, the main factor in the plan is the membranes. We've got 3 in place, and that's what we've had since I arrived on the scene, and that's what we have now, 3 in place.
Okay. I'm just reading this to see if there's anything.
All right. One more question. Didn't Juan mention something about decreasing capacity?
Mayor,
Didn't
council.
you say something about NMEG telling us we had to do something that may decrease capacity?
So that was on our permit levels. So the plant at full build out is designed hydraulically for 150,000 gallons per day. We're currently only doing, Larry, correct me if I'm wrong, anywhere from 29 to 34, depending on the day. So, and
Typically, yes.
with our 3 membranes, we're approximately 56,000 gallons. We've got the 3 cassettes. We've got the 4th cassette, which could take us up to 75,000. So that's going to be where our permit level is going to sit at. Moving forward is going to be at 75,000. If we want to activate the second side and put in 4 more cassettes to get us to that 150, that's when we'll have to go for a permit modification in order to do it. Under the current permit at 150,000, we could just go put in additional cassettes if we wanted to. But when they lower that number, for us to exceed the 75,000, we're going to have to redo basically modify the permit and get their permission to go above the 75. So that's the capacity that's being decreased, and that's at the permit level, not actually at the plant. What's going through it.
And does that make sense to decrease it?
That's what NMED wants. So, if they're telling us they're going to take it down just to make sure, we have to report to them when we want to increase it, go above the 75. I mean, they're the regulators. They tell us what we need to do. I mean,
Mr. Hall, do you have any comment on that?
No, that is correct. That's what, that was my understanding of what NMED said they wanted to do. Is we have the 2 basins, 2 MBRs. One of them is currently in use with 3 membranes in place, with basically all the hardware and piping and everything there to add a 4th one. The other MBR sits empty without any piping or anything like that. So that's part of that expansion from the 75 to the 150 would require construction to go in and put piping in and air piping, and it's not as simple as just throwing a cassette in and starting it up. And I think that my understanding was that was where NMED was coming from, is they saw that as more of a plant expansion, whereas with what we've got right now, all we got to do is drop a 4th cassette in, and we're a business, and that will get us to the 75. They also mentioned there would be a cost decrease which would be beneficial. I don't think that was the primary reason, but it was something they mentioned.
Okay.
And then my last question is, how did COVID impact the operations and the levels, especially with the restaurants and the hotel not being as active as they normally would be?
Initially in March, April, we saw, I saw some reduced numbers, but from what I could see, it didn't affect it as much as you thought it might, as I thought it might, which was, I don't know, frankly, a little bit perplexing. I'm not sure why that is. I theorized maybe, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but it didn't really seem to affect the flow a whole lot.
Okay. All right, so thank you, Mr. Hall, for answering all these questions. Like I said, hopefully we can have you on at least once a month so that you don't have to answer 30 or 40 questions every year.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And if I have follow-up things, I had found your email online, so I'll be able to just again email you and Juan here for anything else that comes up.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Hall, very much. Appreciate the time and effort and all of your hard work. I'll make a motion to accept the third quarter of 2020 Town of Edgewood wastewater treatment report.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the Town of Edgewood 2020 third quarter wastewater treatment report. How do you vote? Councilor Abraham?
Aye.
Councilor Jaramillo?
Aye.
Councilor Hawley?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Motion passes. I would make a motion to accept the Town of Edgewood 2020 fourth quarter wastewater treatment report.
Second.
A motion and second to approve the Town of Edgewood 2020 fourth quarter wastewater treatment report. How do you vote? Councilor Jaramillo?
Aye.
And Councilor Hawley?
Aye.
Councilor Abraham?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Next on the agenda is a presentation of the roadway conditions valuation report and the department report for the month of January 2021, followed by questions from the governing body. The action is discussion, consideration, and action on acceptance of the road department report for the month of January 2021. Go ahead.
All right, hi guys. The monthly report that I send out, I think is pretty self-explanatory. I try to be brief in my explanations, but to the point enough that you guys know every day what's going on in the road department.
Can you speak up just a little?
You're gonna have to swallow the microphone.
Yep. Okay. So the monthly report, I try and be as brief as I possibly can with it, and go ahead and keep you guys in the loop as best I can. I think that it's pretty self-explanatory. The grading a road, there's not a whole bunch to say about grading a road other than it's been graded.
I do love this new report. It provides a lot of information and does make me feel like I'm very informed about where you've been and what you've been doing. And if somebody calls me and says, how come they haven't been at my road in 7 months? I can look at the report and say, well, maybe you didn't see them, but they were there. So this is helpful to me. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Do they not blade every day? How often do they blade?
It's on an as-needed basis. I determine the day before what road will be graded the next day. As you know, with gravel roads, there's so many things play into when it's done, how it's done, and what needs to be done. We could, such as Venus, we're out there once a week as a rule, East Venus Road. Whereas other ones will go an entire month and not be touched. So it depends on the amount of traffic, the weather, the speed that the traffic is going, the amount, the type. So there's a lot of factors that go into when it needs to be bladed and when it doesn't. The basic upkeep.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
I'd like to make a comment. Mr. Williams, I really appreciate that you included the Bohannon-Houston report on roadway conditions and valuation. That was very informative to me, so thank you for sharing that with us.
Absolutely. I think that they did an outstanding job on the report that they gave us. Very, very in-depth and a lot of good information in it.
Yes.
A lot of the things that they pointed out are in fact needed and will be coming up shortly. Some of them carry some pretty hefty price tags. And I believe that's something that we're going to have to start looking at here pretty quick.
Also, a question on the water truck. Were they completely cleaned out from the reuse water
Yes,
that had been used?
yes, ma'am, they were.
And how do you do that to make sure you got all of the sludge out of there?
Well, that was done prior to me getting here. Typically, they're drained every day. There are no heavy material that's going to be left in them. They're drained daily.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
as
I
far
have a
as
community member that mentioned that it smelled when it went by, so I was just curious what that could be coming from. So, okay. And then also, it seems like instead of just base, we also need gravel on some of the roads because it seems like the base then just, can fly away.
well, we are using a road base material. So if you're talking about, there's sub base and there's base course. So your sub base is going to be your heavier material, your larger 2 to 3 inch stone. And then the base course material that we use, that we put down on a daily basis, that is in fact what happens is the fines in that material will blow away or get worn on the tires or blow off of the road, and then you're left with just gravel. So gravel is never put on a road. Gravel is a component of what we put down, yes.
Okay. So in our budget meeting I'm not sure, this summer, one of the main topics that we discussed was roads because that's what was most important to people in the town when I was asking for feedback online and other places. So people just really want road improvements. So I had asked the council look at that after the first quarter and possibly allocate, I think the number was 300,000 or so toward the road department for improvements on roads. Is that something that you could use?
Absolutely. What I really need is equipment and people. If we're going to move forward and keep expanding on, taking on more roads and improving the roads, we're going to need the material and the people to do it with. As it stands now, I think that we're keeping up with it. We're holding our own, but as far as expanding and improving, we're in need of equipment and people.
Is there some materials that would be helpful to you now?
Short of the equipment and the people, actual material, are you talking, say, asphalt or or materials such as that, we could start purchasing the smaller equipment, the smaller items that we would need moving forward. But as far as actual material, I would say no. I have at my disposal the stuff that I need to get and need to buy to do day-to-day operations. If we could look into...
And repair.
No, correct. If we're gonna start looking into repairs as far as asphalt goes and concrete, curb and gutter, so forth, so on, we're gonna need quite a bit more.
Okay. So I guess my next question would be to council on that as far as when can we get that back as an action item? We were going to do that after the first quarter. But at the time, during the budget meeting, we did want to make sure to give our director the chance to assess everything, make some recommendations to us, and then do a budget adjustment for that so that he can get equipment or materials, possibly staffing. I mean, I'm open to hearing recommendations, but I think that needs to be added to the agenda for action so that we can actually make that budget for the department.
Is there
I
any
know we all
more?
agree, so I know that we all did agree already on that, so it's not something that we need, a majority to agree on again, but we just need to get it on an agenda. So,
Is there any more discussion of the current topic, the road department report for the month of January 2021?
no, good job.
Could I address the smell from the water truck that concerns me, and I've heard it in the past as well. If there is an odor coming from the water, that's the water that everybody's bathing in. We're taking it directly from EPCOR. So.
Yeah, that hasn't been, nobody's complaining about the smell of their water that they're bathing in, so.
And that's, I was just addressing that is in fact the water that's coming out of the water truck. Is we're taking it right out of the hydrant. So there's.
Yeah, I understand. Well, that's why I was curious, because, how are these trucks cleaned? I would suppose, it's a pretty complicated thing. Not just easy that it's just running water through, right? They'd have to be scrubbed down and sanitized, right?
I'm sure that they were sent out and sanitized, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
well, I had only just heard the one complaint. That's just something to, keep an eye on.
Okay, and one other thing you had mentioned materials. One thing that the road department is in dire need of is a roller, a vibratory roller. I don't know how familiar you are with road design and standards, but we have no means of compacting as it stands. So that's a huge issue, and a piece of the pie in road construction is compaction. So as far as materials go, if that's something that we can make happen sooner than later, that would be much appreciated.
How much are they?
I could go out and get a few quotes, and I could get them back to you
Well,
guys.
We may want to have that item on the agenda for council to take action before you go through that, because I'm not sure how everyone feels, as far as the budget adjustment, but so maybe we want to do that step first. I don't know, it's up to council, commission, whatever we are, to, maybe we need the information first before we know what we would do a bar. The other option too, in the past, I have tried to help get a water truck and then surplus equipment, and the city of Albuquerque has those from time to time, right? And also the auctions at the state. So, but I know that they're not always, you know, in the best condition, and they can be very old, right? So,
Right.
that's
There's
why
a
they
reason
can
they're at
sometimes
auction.
be more trouble than they're worth, I would say. But you never know when you're going to find a treasure. So, I guess that's another option to look for too.
As far as I know, all of those auctions and they've all been closed, but due to COVID.
Well, I believe we should move forward. I make a motion to accept the road
Can
department
I
report
ask
for
can I ask one more question?
the month.
You talk about needing personnel. Is there a way we could have, like, I don't know, temporary people, volunteers, something like that, if our insurance covered, to do a specific maybe road project or something like that? Like snow removal, for instance. Is there a way we could cover and hire like local people who do that kind of stuff?
I believe that would be more of a Juan question. I would be very surprised that our insurance would cover high school students out on the road doing a road project.
Well, no, I'm not. I'm not talking high school students. I'm talking. You know, we have a lot of developers that live in our area. You know, I just had some guy who has, I don't know, I think it's MCI or one of those well-known trucking companies. He lives here, and my neighborhood was able to contract with him for a very reasonable price to do. I know you know that the town maintains part of Palomino, but not all of it, and he was able to do the top half of Palomino and Morpher Road for a very reasonable rate. So if we could, you know, if you have a specific project, maybe we could get some people like that. I don't know, it's just a thought.
Yeah, it is a good thought, because you can always do small contracts for small projects, you know, repairs or something that needs to be done.
Yes, ma'am, that always is a possibility. I would say that the cost would outweigh the benefit. Once you start getting into those types of projects, they tend to be costly.
Okay, it was a thought, something that we could look into. You know, they were very reasonable for doing my road. They did some culverts and really did a great job. And so I thought, you know, if we have, I don't know, you know, we hire contractors for other things, maybe, you know, occasional something, I don't know. All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So I will finish my motion to approve the road department report for the month of January 2021. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Counselor Jaramillo, how do you vote?
Aye.
Counselor Hawley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Counselor Abraham, how do you vote?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Next item is discussion, consideration.
5-minute recess.
Say what?
Can we get a 5-minute recess?
We have a 5-minute.
Could we get a 5-minute?
We can. I've been asked to ask for a 5-minute recess. I would like to recess for 5 minutes. Are we in agreement? Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
We are recessed for 5 minutes. Or where are we at time-wise? Are we back? You wanna unmute? Do I unmute this thing? How do I do this?
Just push the red button.
Push the red button. There we go. 8:15. Where are we with the time? We're good?
Yeah,
Okay.
5 minutes.
All right. We've had a 5-minute recess. We'll come back into session. Find my glasses. And we are now on item 3C, discussion, consideration, and action on the findings of fact and conclusions of law regarding the public hearing, quasi-judicial, heard at the regular council meeting of February 10th, 2021, regarding the application of Valley View Christian Church for a zone change of one lot from R1 residential, 1 acre, lot to SU, special use, tract A-B-R, Township 10 North, Range 7 East, Section 15, of 4.94 acres, aka 170 New Mexico 344 NMPM, Town of Edgewood, Santa Fe County, New Mexico. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the findings of facts and conclusion of law regarding the public hearing, that all the stuff you just said.
Okay, I guess that'll work, and I will second that. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. Councilor Holly, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor Jaramillo, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor Abraham, how do you vote?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Motion passes. Item D, discussion, consideration, and action on ordinance 2102 or 2021-02, amendment to the zone map rezone change of one lot from R1 residential 1 acre to SU special use, tract A-B-R, Township 10 North, Range 7 East, Section 15 of 4.94 acres, aka 170 New Mexico 344 NMPM, Town of Edgewood, Santa Fe County, New Mexico. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve ordinance number 2021-02, an ordinance granting the approval of a zone change to special use zone within the town of Edgewood.
Counselor, this is the amendment to the zone map. It's action on ordinance 2021-02, an amendment to the zone map ordinance.
That is not what this says.
We're on item D.
Yes?
We approved the findings of fact and conclusions of law, and now we are making the amendment to the zone map ordinance.
I am reading what it says, and the ordinance says an ordinance granting the approval of a zone change to the special use zone within the town of Edgewood.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've got it here in front of me. I do see what it says there, and I do see what it says on the agenda. We are approving a zone change and a zone map change.
I'll second.
With changing the wording to match which? The agenda?
That would be the ordinance itself that is in front of us. It is an ordinance granting the approval of a zone change to special use within the town of Edgewood. And I could read it all the way through if we need to. I don't believe we do, because this changes the zone map as part of the now therefores.
Okay, so do we need to just amend the title or not?
No, I believe the ordinance as written does what we need to for
Okay.
amending the zoning map.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem and, I don't even know what to call you, Counselor, Commissioner, Governing Body Member Abraham. I'll be glad when this is figured out. On item 3, it does say the zone map of inside the ordinance number 3 of the town of Edgewood shall be amended accordingly. So I think we're probably okay to leave it with the title that it has, unless legal counsel thinks otherwise.
And I don't think legal counsel's going to weigh in on this one. I think everything looks like it should for
Okay.
this ordinance. So we're approving the ordinance 2021-02, an ordinance granting the approval of the zone change to special use within the town of Edgewood. And I heard a motion and a second. And we had discussion, so I believe I will call for the vote. Councilor Jaramillo
Aye.
and Councilor Abraham.
Aye.
Councilor Hawley.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Motion passes. The zone map will change and the ordinance is in effect. Next item, item E. Discussion, consideration, and action on the findings of fact and conclusions of law regarding the public hearing heard at the regular council meeting of February 10th, 2021, regarding the application of Brandon Gihasi for a zone change of 4 lots from R1 residential, 1 acre, to agricultural, and 1 lot from R2 residential, 2 acre, to agricultural. Tract A2, Township 10 North, Range 8 East, Section 7 of 35 acres, aka 420 Bassett Boulevard. And I don't know how to see TRB, but Township 10 North, Range 8 East, Section 7 of 51.69 acres, aka 315 East Venus Road, and TRC Township North, Range 8 East, Section 7 of 40 acres, aka 329 East Venus Road, and Tract A1 Township 10 North, Range 8 East, Section 7, aka 349 East Venus Road, and Tract N2 NW4 SE4 Township 10 North, Range 7 East, Section 12, aka 0 Rattlesnake Run, NMPM, Town of Edgewood, Santa Fe County, New Mexico. Do I hear a motion on the findings of fact and conclusions of law?
I'll make a motion to approve the findings of fact and conclusions of law. Shall I continue? Regarding the public...
Yeah, this is a very long one. I will go ahead and second just for, we'll just do that. That took a while to read. Do we have any discussion?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem. I went back and listened to the meeting and listening to the opponent's concerns about the water, and then found out that 60 acre feet is 19.5 million gallons of water per year. Wow. Wow, that's a lot. So I got very concerned about that, and then also just removing that much residential from the town's zoning. So,
5 acres.
Excuse me?
Don't know where that came from.
Oh, okay. 60 acre feet? I mean, that's what I heard, and I, you know, that's a lot of gallons per year, guys. I think that definitely could impact the neighbors. And I know that Ms. Mortensen didn't do an independent study on that or anything. But let's say in the future, that was not going to be just a vineyard. You know, it's agriculture, and that's a lot of water that could be pulled from the area, as well as, you know, there was an original idea for why those residentials were set that way, and I don't think the research really was there to tell us, you know, why those residences, why it had been zoned that way in the past. So those are my two big concerns that I wanted to bring up this evening.
Any other comments?
Can I say something?
Yes, you may.
Well, we already had the public hearing. This is the findings of fact. This is just saying what happened in the public hearing. So those concerns should have been brought up during the public hearing, since it was already approved.
Right, I understand that, and it's something that just didn't really have adequate answers after I went back and looked at it. So, but I understand what you're saying. We just didn't have an answer as far as to, you know, why it was zoned R, and really just not knowing that that's 19.5 million gallons per year. I mean, that's a lot that could be coming out of the basin here, and I believe that that could impact the neighbors, right? And we had an opponent for that. So,
Are there any other comments? Hearing none, we've got a motion and a second to approve the findings of fact and conclusions of law. How do you vote? Councilor Jaramillo?
nay.
Councilor Hawley?
Aye.
Councilor Abraham?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Motion passes. Next item is the ordinance 2021-03, an ordinance granting the approval of 5 zone changes to agricultural within the town of Edgewood. I am not going to read all of the legal on this one because we've gone through this a time or two. I will, however, call for a motion.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I make a motion to approve amending the zone change and amending the zone map for ordinance number 2021-03.
And I will second. Any discussion?
You know, I do have one thing that did come up talking to the community. Was somebody asked me, was this part of a master plan zone? And honestly, I couldn't tell them. Just in the future, can we get like a colored copy of what the zoning around it is to go with these? So we can
You did get a copy. You absolutely did. You did get a copy in your packet showing us the zoning board.
black and white. And
I'm sorry. I gave color copies, but yeah, it wasn't a part of a master plan. It wasn't.
Yeah, I found an old zone map and was able to verify that, but it would just be helpful in the future to have.
I apologize. I didn't know that we got black and white copies.
Yeah, so anyway, that's my only comment is that.
Any others? Hearing none, I will ask for a vote. Counselor Abraham.
Aye.
Counselor Holly.
Aye.
Counselor Jaramillo.
No.
I vote aye. Motion passes. The ordinance moves forward. And next item is discussion, consideration, and action on Mayor Pro Tem's recommendation for reappointment of Glenn Felton to the Planning and Zoning Commission of the Town of Edgewood for a term which would expire on 12/31/2021.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I would like to recommend, since we found out that these people stay in office until their successor is chosen, I would like to table these appointments until after. We just put out an advertisement for new, for planning and zoning applicants, and I would like to give it just another couple weeks to get applicants before we appoint anyone.
I will.
Mayor Pro Tem? Go ahead.
Ms. Mortensen?
I will. Mayor Pro Tem, I don't know why we would table reappointments when we have had these people for all these years, and they've done a fantastic job. In fact, I can tell you what they've done. They've heard 9 subdivisions, 7 zone changes, 4 conditional use permits, 4 zoning annexations, 3 lot line vacations, and have served on the Comprehensive Land Use Plan Committee. They've also worked on a whole bunch of writings and amending on various land use ordinances. And all of this has been done without any appeals, which is pretty amazing. So you have 4 people that are still willing to serve that have done an amazing job. So, and they're trained, and we have a busy year ahead. Why wouldn't you just keep them and just add 2 more since we have vacancies? They've done a great job. I mean, with no appeals, that's an amazing accomplishment. That just shows you the training that they have had and how good they are. This is the best commission I've ever worked with.
Councilor Jaramillo, you had a comment?
No, I was just trying to second the motion due to the time factor. I was disappointed that I had to hear about this from a community member. We had somebody, I think Councilor Abraham had brought it up in the past meetings, and you know, we were never even told that you were looking for applicants. And then there turned out to be an advertisement, and so I'm wondering, did you want public input on applicants? And, you know, did you want council's input on applicants?
Well, it always goes to council. You know, Mayor Pro Tem's the one that reappoints, and, you know, it's him that makes the decision to bring it forward to you. And we've never told you in the past when we had a vacancy. I mean, you guys knew that we've had an alternate vacancy or just a vacancy since Cheryl's been gone, and then Stephanie left. You read the minutes, so you knew there was 2 vacancies. So I didn't think that I had to come before you to say there's 2 vacancies when it's been in my minutes. But like I said, we've got 4 people that have been there, they're willing to go, and we've still got 2 vacancies. So I think we should just reappoint them so we can they're ready to go to work.
I understand that, and I was more speaking to Mayor Pro Tem as far as wanting input from council and the public. I know the ad, you know, did go out, but we weren't even aware of that. And so I just think it's wise to give people in the community time to apply. And this is, you know, some of the same questions I had when I was first elected and on council about applications and what's the process, and let's make sure that everybody has a fair chance to submit their application and interest, then have the mayor review those, and then bring recommendations. But at least we could see who in the community is interested. As of right now, I don't know who all that may be. So that's why I'm agreeing to table for now until we can get a sense of who is interested.
Council, we have a motion and a second to table items, I guess. I don't know if you could restate the motion.
To table items G, H, I, and J until the next meeting so that we can advertise and get a large pool of applicants.
Okay. There's a motion and a second to table items G, H, I, and J. How do you vote? Councilor Jaramillo?
Aye.
Councilor Holly?
Nay.
Councilor Abraham?
Aye.
I vote nay as well. Again, consideration and action on the recommendation to reappoint Glenn Felton to the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'll make a motion to approve the reappointment. Do I hear a second?
I'll make a second. I think we should keep our commission in place so they can continue to do the town's work. And as Ms. Mortensen said, we've got vacancies that can still be filled beyond this team.
I hear no other comment. Councilor Abraham, how do you vote?
Nay.
Councilor Jaramillo,
Nay.
what was that, Councilor Jaramillo?
Nay.
Councilor Holly, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Motion dies for lack of a majority. Item H, consideration action on the recommendation to reappoint Janelle Turner to the Planning and Zoning Commission of the Town of Edgewood for a term which would expire on 12/31/2021. I will make a motion to approve the appointment of Janelle Turner.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Councilor Abraham,
Nay.
Councilor Holly,
Aye.
Councilor Jaramillo.
Nay.
I will vote aye. The reappointment dies for lack of a majority. Item I, discussion, consideration, and action on the recommendation to reappoint Steve Fox to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a term which would expire on 12/31/2022. That's very interesting. Okay. I will make the motion to reappoint Steve Fox. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Do I hear discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. Councilor Holly, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor Abraham, how do you vote?
Nay.
Councilor Jaramillo, how do you vote?
Nay.
I vote aye. Motion dies for lack of a majority. Item J, consideration and action on the recommendation to reappoint Jim Lee to the Planning and Zoning Commission of the Town of Edgewood for a term which would expire 12/31/2022. I'll make the motion to approve Jim Lee. Do I hear a second?
I will second.
Got a motion and a second. Do I hear any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Councilor Jaramillo, how do you vote?
Nay.
Counselor Holly, how do you vote?
Aye.
Counselor Abraham, how do you vote?
Nay.
I vote aye. Motion dies for lack of majority. Item K, discussion, consideration, and action on the approval of the financials for the month of December 2020. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'll make a motion to approve the financials for the month of December 2020.
I will second. Do I hear discussion?
Actually, yes, on this one, I did have a question. We don't have legal expenses for this month, and I wanted to ask about that.
So I have not had received a legal bill since October, which was the last legal bill that we actually paid. So I have not received an invoice at all. So yeah, we don't have anything.
Okay, legal counsel is there. Can he tell us why we aren't being billed since September or August?
No.
His answer was no.
Okay, so I'm getting concerned that we have no idea where we're at on budget, and it's not wise to continue in that manner. So is there a plan, Mayor Pro Tem, to catch us up on legal bills?
I will find out.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question on the MSLL Inc. For $64,000, almost $65,000 for trucks for the fleet for the police department. What is MSLL?
It's the dealership in Los Lunas. I can't remember the name of them right now.
Michael Luna.
Yeah, Michael Luna. So we're waiting for Power Ford to come in, and they could not guarantee us when the vehicles were going to come in. So we found them at another dealership that was going to extend the price. So we ended up purchasing them from that dealership instead.
Okay, and so how many trucks or cars or vehicles or whatever do we have in the police fleet right now?
Chief Sanchez, I believe, are you on?
I can't hear you.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
Now I hear you.
Okay, you're very low to me, so you have to talk to me. You're gonna have to yell. There are 10 vehicles, 10 trucks. We do have older ones that we are using for pool cars, but at this point we have 10.
Okay, and how many do you anticipate needing as replacements in the near future?
Right now, we're in discussion of additional 2.
Okay. Okay, that was my only question on that.
Okay.
Council, we have a motion and a second on the approval of the finances for the month of December 2020. I'll ask for a vote. Councilor Jaramillo.
Okay.
Councilor Holly.
Aye.
Councilor Abraham.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Motion passes. Next, we have discussion, consideration, and action on approval of financials for the month of January 2021. I'll make a motion to approve the financials for the month of January 2021. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion?
I have a discussion. I see on page 1 there's an on-call service for Bohannon, Houston. What are they on call for?
They're one of our on-call contractors, so that could have been anything from a P&Z plan review to, yeah, the road report. Actually, the road report was probably a task order, so, I will look at that one and let you know, but they are one of our on-call engineers, and typically, actually, if you look at that one, it was paid out of planning and zoning, so that was probably a plan review or development review of some sort.
Okay. And how many on-call engineers do we have now?
We have 4.
Okay. Do we plan on going out for RFP for those in the near future, or did we recently do that?
I think
Last year.
yeah, we did it last year, so we're good for 2.5 more years.
Okay. And then I did see that the Purple Heart signs came in. So based on that, I know we had talked about doing it for Veterans Day, but I'm thinking maybe at this point we can plan something for Memorial Day, even though it's not really appropriate, but I don't want those signs out there forever and us not ever recognizing their recipients. So just a thought for you guys to, can we agree to plan something like that? Even if it's a drive-by thing like you guys did for the Halloween. I think, it would be nice for us to get those signs up and honor our citizens who are recipients of this.
Well, we'll see what we can do to get the signs up, and we will plan something to memorialize them.
Okay, thank you. I think that was all I had, just something to cruise through one more time. Okay, that was it.
We have a motion and a second to approve the financial report for the month of January 2021. How do you vote, Councilor Jaramillo?
I did have a question as far as Mr. Torres. I just wanted to have you comment on GRT. To me, it looks pretty healthy still.
So yeah, GRT is back up again. So this would have been for the month of December. So you can definitely tell, looking back at January, which was November, when the most stringent restrictions were in place, we definitely took a hit. One area of concern is the hold harmless, the food and medical distribution. That amount looks like it's gone completely low, and that also includes that 3,600 for internet distributions that they're giving us. So we're at 85,903, whereas, for the majority of the year we've been, we're well above 120 to 100, almost 140. So the fact that it's going down, I'm not sure if that's a good sign or a bad sign. I don't know if more people now are going back to shopping in town. But even looking at the trends compared to last year, we're still down, and I can't explain it. So I reached out to Tax and Rev, and hopefully they'll give me back an answer. But I'm not sure why we're down so much on the hold harmless portion.
Yeah, that doesn't look right, so I'm glad that you reached out to them. Has it been the 3 months, when's it been? How long ago did you contact them?
I called Mr. Monteith probably, when did we get this one? The 15th, so I think I called him about
last week.
Wednesday last week.
Okay.
So, he's usually pretty quick at getting an answer back, so hopefully we'll get something very soon.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, one more time. I will call for the vote. Councilor Jaramillo.
Aye.
Councilor Abraham.
Aye.
Councilor Holly.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Motion passes. Discussion and consideration and action on the approval of the RFP for a wastewater treatment plant contractor service. You have before you a copy of the RFP going over the scope of work and criteria, as well as many other aspects of the management of our wastewater plant, in hope that we can find someone who will help us out. Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion to go out for RFP for wastewater plant operator. I do have some discussion items, maybe possibly some slight changes in here or some additions.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
We've got a motion and a second. Discussion.
Okay, so one thing I would like to see in here is under shall oversee the town of Edgewood wastewater treatment plant, maybe create or improve process control improvements. That was something that Mr. Hall talked about that he hasn't really been able to do, but it is something I think we need moving forward, for them not to just be putting out fires all the time, but to also be able to possibly create some process control improvements. And then under number 12, where it says town clerk treasurer, I would like to add in there manager or replace manager, because we are supposed to be looking for a manager. And so everywhere, also in 14 and 15, I would like to add in the word town clerk / treasurer / manager. And for the ranking criteria, on page 2, you talk about the town will use a technical advisory committee made up of town personnel and or contractors. Our old RFP resolution used to call for a member of the governing, it used to call for 2 members of the governing body and a member of the public. I would like to have at least 1 member of the governing body and 1 member of the public as part of that advisory committee. And on page, I lost pages now. I don't have page numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I believe it's page 6, where it talks about the negotiation and the execution of the approval of the agreement. I would like in there that where it says the town shall publicly announce the business selected for award, I would like to add in there that the town shall publicly approve and accept the terms and costs of the contract prior to signing. And then above there it says an evaluation committee composed of representatives selected by the mayor. I would like to say governing body. That the governing body chooses the or approves the RFP committee or whatever. And on the next page, number A, says amendment, this contract will not be altered, changed, or amended except by a written document signed by the parties of this contract and approved by the governing body. And under number G, Communication with the town of Edgewood. The contractors shall be required to update the town of Edgewood of the status of any project. I would like to add provide monthly reports and quarterly presentations. And again, under number K, we need to add in town clerk, treasurer, or manager.
Are you done with your comments, Councilor Abraham?
Yes.
And your motion includes all of these changes?
Yes.
I would then make a motion to table this document until another session because your
Okay.
edits need to be reviewed both by legal and by the town. I mean, that was a pretty large rewrite, Counselor. So I think we need to take this under consideration, and I will stand for a second on tabling this item.
Point of order, Mayor Pro Tem. Since we do have a motion and a second, I think that we do need to vote on that
Okay.
and then do the next vote for tabling. And also, I do have comments that should be considered, and I can just say those quickly now. I had the same concerns about monthly reports and presentations rather than quarterly. I would like them monthly due to the high risk of the plants and just in an effort to move them along, move things along, right? And then also I wanted to add, and I can give an email for this, but have the operator review and approve the safety procedures and, threat assessment and contingency plan. So just so that we have a good plan in place and just knowing everyone is safe and a good procedure in place for that. But like I said, I can email my
Okay.
suggested changes.
Please. Well, we have a motion and a second to approve this RFP, so I will take a vote. Councilor Abraham, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor Jaramillo?
I'll vote nay.
Councilor Hawley?
May I have clarification to approve this RFP as is or with the suggested?
With all the changes that I mentioned, that was my motion.
I vote nay.
And I vote nay as well. Motion is denied. RFP is not approved. I will, however, suggest that the administration take your suggestions and resubmit this for our approval at a later meeting. Thank you.
Okay.
Discussion, consideration, and action on Resolution 2021-2, the Open Meetings Resolution, the Open Meetings Act resolution for the town of Edgewood. You have before you the Town of Edgewood Open Meetings Resolution, Resolution 2021. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I make a motion to approve the Resolution 2021-02, Town of Edgewood Open Meetings Resolution with changes, which would include removing mayor and council of the town in the title and changing it to the governing body. I would like to see in the first and second whereas the council chambers be changed to council/commission chambers. And everywhere where it talks about council, I would like there also to be a /commissioners in there. And Under number 3, the special meeting may be called by a majority of the governing body. And the same in number 4. Number 7 is a little bit confusing because we're talking about third person and then you talk about something different. So if we could just change where it starts the italicized area, take out "you are" and just make it "if an individual with a disability will be in need of a reader, amplifier, qualified sign language, blah, 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 that they contact the town 5 days prior." And then, again, just change mayor or council members to mayor, council, commission members, both of those. And then number 9 as well. And that's all I have.
Do I hear a second? Hearing no second, motion dies for lack of second. Moving on.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
it's just like the previous one, a suggestion that we can get changes maybe in a red line copy before the next meeting when this is brought back. And some of the language might be cleared up by then anyway, as far as, you know, governing bodies. And then I did have a question. If this is, Carla referred in an email to me that there was one that was completely replaced, and I didn't remember which one it was. If it was this open meetings or the operating.
Open meetings.
Okay, so I would like time to go back and compare to the old one. I didn't have time to do that today. So that's helpful to me as well. Thank you.
Item O, a resolution 2021-3, Town of Edgewood Governing Body Operating Resolution. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I make a motion to approve Resolution 2021-3, the Town of Edgewood Governing Body Operating Resolution.
And I will second. Discussion.
I found this really neat resolution in the history of the town of Edgewood. It says resolution number 2002-03, a resolution to establish the official guidelines to conduct council meetings. And it says, whereas the governing body for the town of Edgewood, New Mexico, hereby adopts Robert's Rules of Order as official guidelines for conducting its meetings. And it was passed and adopted, and it's very short and sweet. Since we're going by Robert's Rules, I suggest we do something sweet and simple like this. And not 9 pages of stuff that mentions Robert's Rules, but then has all these other additions, and it repeats much of the open meetings resolution. I think our operating resolution has become enormously over cumbersome and needs to be reevaluated in a way that I can't do at this meeting.
Any other comment or discussion? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. Councilor Jaramillo.
Nay.
Councilor Holly.
Aye.
Councilor Abraham.
Nay.
And I vote aye. Motion dies for lack of a majority. Discussion, consideration, and action on Resolution 2021-4, a Town of Edgewood budget adjustment, adding a police officer position. Councilors, we have seen and heard from our police department. We have also seen that our budgetary position currently is in the positive, and I think it is only a fitting use of our funding to help our police department to do the job that we are asking them to do. So I would ask to pass, I will make a motion to pass Resolution 2021-04, making a budget adjustment, adding a police officer position to the Town of Edgewood's Police Department. Do I hear a second?
Second, with discussion, how many officers will this bring us up to if we add another one? Not vacant ones, but how many total will we have on the street?
I apologize again, I'm having trouble hearing, but from what I heard, is you're asking how many we have. We have 11 right now, but keeping in mind that one of them is still deployed, and this would put us up to 12.
Okay, so if we're fully staffed, we would have 12 officers.
Yes, yes, ma'am. That 12 includes me.
Including the chief,
Oh, okay.
yes.
Okay, thanks.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for a vote. Councilor Abraham, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor Holly, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor Jaramillo, how do you vote?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. We have added the funding for another police officer position. Chief, please bring us a good candidate in the very near future. And I hope this helps.
Absolutely.
I hope this helps.
You know what? I noticed that our advertisement for police officers on the New Mexico Municipal website is like from 2019. Could we maybe update that? I think we need to look at those that are on there and see where else can we be advertising. On our website is one place, but we need to reach out to the state, I think.
Agreed. Mayor, Council, we are going to begin advertising in the Albuquerque Journal, Santa Fe newspaper, the Independent, and reach out that way and see if we can bring some in. Somebody brought up the suggestion that we also try down in Las Cruces, if we could find somebody who'd be willing to come up this way. And I am more than up for that. I just want to find the best candidate for the community.
You know, the other thing is, in the past, we have gotten young men and sponsored them through the academy if they're local. That might be something to look at as well. That's how we got Sergeant Lovato.
Yes, and he's a phenomenal asset to the department. I'm not even going to do that in any way, shape, or form. And I am all up for that. The only problem that comes with is the time that it takes to train somebody, get them to the academy. And we're looking at, because it's COVID right now, we're only doing 2 academies a year.
Yeah.
Which puts us at a year before we hire them, get them to the academy, get them trained, and stuff like that. But I don't object to that in any way, shape, or form. I think I would like to see somebody from the community. I apologize. Councilor, I cut you off. What was that?
Yeah, it may not be the immediate solution, but I think it's a good solution for the future.
Absolutely.
So, all right.
Thank you, Councilor. Thank you, Mayor.
We now are on item 5, discussion items. Public comment on general matters. What we will do is we will unmute each of the individuals and ask that they identify themselves, and we will write down your number in the queue and call on you by that number. So if you would, go ahead and start with that, and we will start with caller number 3. You're unmuted.
I would give my 2 minutes to Jerry Powers,
And who is this, please?
Martha Eden.
Thank you, Miss Eden. Caller number 6. You are unmuted. Caller number 6.
Is this for me?
Yes.
No, that's 18 speaking.
Oh, that's 18. 18 is speaking? Okay, no, no. Okay.
So no.
Nobody at caller 6?
Hello?
Who is this speaking?
That was caller 17.
Caller 17. Okay, no one's responding at caller 6. Go ahead and unmute caller 7. Caller 7, are you there?
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah. Hi, this is Ray Siggers,
Uh-huh.
wishing to make a public comment.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Seegers. Caller number 8, you are unmuted. Hello. Caller 8. Hear no one at caller 8. Caller 9, you are unmuted.
Karen Kaiser.
Thank you, Ms. Kaiser. Caller number 11.
This is Linda Burr. No comment tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Burr. Caller number 16. You're unmuted.
Cheryl Hubbard.
Thank you, Ms. Hubbards. Caller number 17. You are now unmuted.
This is Jerry Powers.
Mr. Powers. Thank you. Caller number 18.
This is Jeremy Toon. I'd like to donate my 2 minutes to Jerry Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Toon. And that would be all the callers that we have. So we begin with
7, Mr. Seegers.
we begin with, well, no,
Miss Eden gave her to Jerry.
right. Okay, so we begin with,
Yeah. That's what I need to do.
okay. So Jerry Powers, we begin with Mr. Seegers, number 7. Mr.
Okay,
Seegers?
thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to comment on 2 things. I'd like to see the public comments come early in the meeting so that when you're voting on items, that at least the public can hone in before the vote. The other thing is that there was a vote tonight that I just wanted, this is food for thought, because we seem guilty of not doing much planning, the kind that says where we want to go. We do a comprehensive plan. It's our best stab at it. But I think we need to start now looking at land that we downzone, which was an issue tonight, or upzone, because the decisions were made to do the zoning in the past. And we're running out, I'm a realtor here, and I know a lot about what's going on in the tracts available. We're running out of land that's developable for R1 or R2. So we ought to consider what inventory we have, and perhaps the people in our planning department ought to keep an eye on what we've got left that might, be our next large lot residential development, and make sure it stays in place. Because if we don't do that, you're going to look around and you study a zoning map, all of you, I think you will notice that it's getting kind of scarce. what our future development could be. And we ought to be looking down the road. That is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seegers. Next, we have caller 9, Karen Kaiser.
Good evening and thank you. I want to acknowledge all of you for such an ambitious agenda tonight. You've put in a lot of good hard work, but I'm really concerned that tonight, yet again, there's no mention of our change to commission manager government that 70% of the voters chose, and it really needs to be on the next agenda. Once the results of that August 2020 special election were canvassed, certified, and recorded in the town minutes, you, the governing body, had to proceed to organize under commission manager. And you had to do it then, not in a month or a year or after the November election of commissioners, but when you certified that election in September 2020. And New Mexico Statute 314.3 says so. It's your legal duty. Statute 314.2 goes on to state that the reorganization is deemed complete and judicially recognized once the certificate is filed with the county clerk and the Secretary of State. That should have happened immediately after that vote last September. So doing nothing is just not an option. The Attorney General office wrote an opinion on the same matter, stating in the conclusion that the current government, you guys, are tasked with preparing the formation and the operation of the commission manager form of government, including districting. You got a town manager to hire. You've got ordinances and resolutions to rewrite, reflecting the proper and current form of government. And thank you, Counselor, Commissioner, whatever we get to call you, Abraham, for starting that tonight. In 6 months, you as a governing body have done nothing, and it's a dereliction of your duty to the town of Edgewood, to the voters of Edgewood that turned out in record numbers to demand a change, and to the laws of the state of New Mexico. Respectfully, I ask you, do your job, follow the law, and formulate the change to commission manager now. You're 6 months late. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kaiser. Next is caller 16, Cheryl Hupperts.
Yes, this is Cheryl Hubbard. I just want to make a comment about reappointment of the P&Z folks. I was disappointed that that didn't happen tonight. Having served on P&Z, I know that it takes a long time to learn and understand all the ordinances and the subdivisions and all those. And a new person coming in could take up to a year or so to really understand, having been there myself. When I first came on P&Z, we had mostly new people, and we muddled around, trying to figure out and understand things, and we depend, of course, a lot on the town person, P&Z person, but once you've gotten that experience that the current P&Z has, it would be good to retain those people. There's still openings and opportunity for new people to come on. But I'd like for council to really reconsider that decision that was made tonight, maybe at the next meeting, because like Tanya said, there were no appeals, and things usually have gone very smooth there at the P&Z planning and zoning. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Hubbard. Next is caller 17, Jerry Powers. Mr. Powers?
Yes, good evening. I want to echo the comments of Ray Seegers with regard to the position of public comment on the agenda. To have people make comments after all of the actions that you've taken is nearly useless and is a good way to marginalize public comment. So I would advocate for moving it up before the action items so that you can actually hear what the public has to say with regard to what they want done, since you do represent them. If you want to marginalize them, I would leave it where it is. But I would advocate that you move it up and let them have their say as they're supposed to in participating in town government. The other comments I have are regarding the blatant disregard of the law that has become a continuing pattern in Edgewood government. There have been multiple violations that were outstanding for years with NMED. There was the incident where one of the governing body members was illegally evicted from a meeting using police power. There was the reprimand from the AG on the OMA violations, the Open Meetings Act violations. The violation of the operating resolution, which requires that you allow the individual members to put items on the agenda, which, by the way, could have solved a world of problems. If everyone is allowed to put an item on the agenda, it can actually get addressed. It can be heard. There were many findings on the audit, many more than has ever happened in Edgewood's history, which negatively affects the town's ability to borrow money and the credit standing of the town. The laws are here to protect the people from arbitrary and capricious actions of government and to know what to expect in their government. So this absolutely ignoring the laws is not the way to protect the public. With regard to the P&Z members this evening, I did some research and found that many of these commissioners have been allowed to operate as commissioners for up to a year outside of their appointed terms without ever having brought to issue a reappointment. So I heard Ms. Mortensen scolding the commission or scolding the governing body tonight about how these people should be reappointed. But if this is the kind of recommendation that's coming from Ms. Mortensen, whose job it was to bring this to the attention of the governing body, that these people were up to a year outside of their terms, it had to be brought to her attention by one of the members of CORE who called her and asked her about this, and only then did she recognize that they were outside of their terms. So they could have themselves, the P&Z commissioners, knowing the end of their terms were up, brought this before the council, brought it to Ms. Mortensen's attention. This is the most sloppy, irresponsible way to run the town government that I've ever seen. I also know that the legal services contract that the town has been paying out hundreds of thousands of dollars on to Robles, Real, and Anaya was never approved by the governing body, although it contains a provision that requires the approval of the governing body. So does the procurement ordinance that the governing body passed, which says you cannot amend a contract that is in excess of $25,000. And certainly at the rates that we've been paying Robles Real has been over $100,000 a year. So this blatant ignoring of the law sooner or later has got to stop. And if it doesn't stop during this administration, I'm sure that there will be a change in the administration after the fall election. People of Edgewood deserve so much better than this. It's appalling to watch it happen. CORE chose the symbology of the train running off the tracks for a reason. What we didn't realize is that it would continue to be driven off the tracks all the way down to the bottom of the canyon before something would change. The other comments that were made tonight regarding the change to commission manager, the reason people primarily, I had so much feedback on the election, people primarily voted to the change in commission manager because they saw the train wreck that I'm talking about in town government, running off the rails, ignoring the laws, blatant disregard of the laws, and then scolding commission members for being concerned about it. So I would advocate that a change in behavior. I've been advocating a change in behavior. It was nice to see that there were items actually put on the agenda that had some substance tonight. But the P&Z members going outside of their terms by so much, I looked it up while we were talking. Your attorney mentioned Article 20 of the Constitution, which says every officer unless removed shall hold the office until the successor has qualified. So a successor not qualifying is an unusual event, and there's a reason to hold over. But there's an attorney general's opinion that says this is not to be used to give an incumbent an additional term. And some of these people, their term was 1 year, and they've overstayed their term by more than a year, so it was misused, according to the Attorney General's opinion, for exactly that reason. And the Attorney General's opinion is 23-3687, if you want to look it up. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Matters from councilors. Councilor Jaramillo.
Yes, just taking a note here, just a second. Like an interesting AG's opinion. Thank you, Mr. Powers, for that. And all of the public comments. As always, I appreciate hearing from you all and take these items very seriously and into consideration. I'm not going to repeat all of my requests for agenda items that have been denied, but they are in emails, and they were, most of them I listed again during my comments at the last meeting. So I'll just restate at this point in time that I'm re-requesting all of those which have not been granted, which has included commission manager. As Ms. Kaiser pointed out, it's been 6 months. There's no excuse for that. And I have been requesting since the election to have these discussions so that we can move forward in a constructive manner on commission manager form of government, which is, as she pointed out, our duty. So, just requesting all of those again, including limited personnel matters. We do need to have a closed session related to that. I have heard from the public complaints, and I believe I sent an email out to the clerk and you, Mayor Pro Tem, possibly a week ago, following up again on many complaints I'm getting that no one's answering phones at town hall, and that when they leave messages that they're not getting return calls back, and also 4 different vendors that they have not been paid. So I asked Mr. Torres and you, Mayor Pro Tem, do we owe people money? If so, why? If we don't owe people money, why am I getting complaints, right? So we need, when I email something, guys, I expect an answer. I would really appreciate it if you do the respect to the governing body to answer the governing body's questions so that we can govern appropriately and have answers so that we therefore can answer to the public. Okay? The public is what drives this, and I listen to them and I try to get answers for them. And that's what I expect out of the Mayor Pro Tem and out of the administration as well, so that I can give them timely, complete, accurate, thorough answers. I really appreciated having Larry Hall here this evening. I thought that once again he was able to answer a lot of questions, which is very positive. Wish we could have had that, back in August, September, October, November, December, January, So not sure why the delay, but here we are, and I'm glad that we have some answers on that. I think that's about all that I have for this evening. I'm looking forward to the next meeting where we can clear up, hopefully, some of the questions on the ordinances, resolutions, governing body, agenda items, etc. So I hope to have a better update then. Thank you.
Councilor Abraham. You're muted.
I would like to again thank Mr. Hall for being here. It did alleviate a lot of the questions that I've been trying to get answered for the last 6 or 9 months. So I do appreciate his information that he provided to us. So I saw that you had advertised for some P&Z positions. I would like to request that we advertise for all advisory positions. You know, we no longer even have a Parks and Rec department. We need a Parks and Rec director or manager or something like that. We need, when I questioned this, I was told that the staff and the old advisory committee weren't real sure they wanted to hire somebody. Well, that is not the way this works. They're an advisory committee to this governing body. We are the ones who need to make decisions about whether positions need to be filled. And we need to address those. We've had no Parks and Rec person for over a year. And so I would like to see that advertised. I would like to see us update the advertisements that we have on the New Mexico Municipal League, which are, some of them are from 2018. So if those positions have been filled, please take them off and advertise new current positions so people will at least know we're still looking. I would like not just an advertisement in the newspaper for advisory positions, because most people don't read newspapers anymore. I would like it on our website. I would like it posted to like the social media sites and stuff like that, so we actually get the people who live in Edgewood applying for some of these boards so we can get the vacancies filled and start doing business again. I know we've been on hold for a long time because of COVID and a lot of other things, but it's time that we get back to the business of governing this community. And as multiple people have said, you know, the election was 6 months ago, we've done nothing. When I was looking through old resolutions, which today I just decided to do to see if I could find a better resolution than what we have, and I went back to 1999 resolutions. And that governing body got with the business of organizing the government. You know, they had an election on July the 1st, Edgewood became a town. You know what, on June 30th, they were filing documents to open banking accounts and get a place to have. They were actively doing what the citizens had asked them to do. And I feel like the citizens spoke. We need to listen. We need to do the will of them. And so that is my comments for the night. Is let's do the active organizing, just from those two resolutions that came up tonight, our operating resolution and our open meeting resolution. It just shows how many changes need to be made to be ready for the new commissioners. Should they have to come in and rewrite every ordinance? We can be working on that. We can be doing that. We can be doing the district, and we're required to do the districting before they can even be elected. We're required to get a manager. We need to have a process to even start advertising, to even decide, do we want to be single district or multiple districts when we actually have our election? Those are decisions that need to be made by us, the four of us. It's our job. And so I just appeal to you to let's act as conscientiously towards the people's decision as that very first governing body did. You know, maybe go back and read those 1999 resolutions. They didn't get them all right. They had 3 or 4 different open meetings resolutions trying to get them right. But they were striving to do what the people asked them to do. And that's all I have for tonight. I think it's unfair of us to ask the public to, you're such an afterthought. We're going to put discussion items way after we've done all the business. I think that's awful of us. We should not do that. We deserve, our citizens deserve better than that, in my opinion. And I think a lot of them have the same opinion I do. So that's my comments for the night.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Holly.
Okay, I'll keep it short since it's getting late. I do have one update. Last meeting I spoke about the NCRTD, the North Central Regional Transit District, starting a pilot project down in Edgewood for the demand service. They have to push off their start for that service. They were planning to do it next week, but that will have to be delayed. So when I get more information, I'll share it with you. That's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Counselor Holly. Actually, there's an awful lot of stuff that's going on, and whether the council knows it or not, the administration had and has been working on the transition since the election. And whether you want to know what's going on or not, I guess, is where we're at tonight. So, one of the first things that I would like to say is that immediately after the election, the town clerk told you all that it was his job to go out and find the person, company, contract, etc., to do the districting. He did exactly that. That happened in late August and early September. Research and Polling has told us, and told us at that time, that there would not be census data until maybe March this year. We now have confirmation that is not going to happen. We will not have census data until perhaps the earliest they estimate September of this year. So, we, the town, the clerk and I have contacted Research and Polling, and we have now in hand a PO for them to do the job of districting. It is very unfortunate that because of issues with our federal government, we are not going to get census data in March or even in April. That we are going to have to wait that long because we are now going to pay for a districting that is going to be inaccurate according to the current census data that we don't have. The latest data that we do have is 2010. And if you recall, in 2010, prior or just after 2010, we had a major infill annexation. So we are going to have to fudge it. Also, the next governing body will have to redistrict again when the 2020 census information is available to them. So unfortunately, folks, the town of Edgewood is going to have to pay for this twice. And the clerk treasurer's estimation was about $20,000, which is, I believe, where we are with the document that was received. So this will be coming forward. We will move this forward as quickly as possible and get them working on our districting. I'm not going to play questions at this point. This is comments from me, and I'm going to move on. We are moving forward with another project that you have all mentioned, well, most all mentioned this evening, and that is codification of our legislation, all of it. All of our resolutions, all of our ordinances, everything will be codified. That will make it very, very simple to update the language in any given section or many sections at once, allowing us to make the changes that are necessary or make the changes in the future that are necessary very quickly. And that we have contacted multiple organizations that do that kind of codification of municipal ordinance, and we will bring that to you very shortly for review. So, in answer to your questions, are we moving forward? Yes, we are. Unfortunately, COVID has gotten in the way, and various other things have gotten in the way, and as I have said before, I'm not that quick on the uptake in a job as big as mayor of a town. So yes, I have been a counselor for a long time, and yes, I have kept track of lots and lots of things. But the day-to-day operations of a municipality are a little bit more than the job of a counselor. And I would caution each of you to be careful what you wish for if you plan on becoming a mayor. With that, I will move on matters from the clerk treasurer.
So, Mayor.
So, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, with permission of the councilors, I have a couple of comments. I neglected to speak to Coyote Crossing.
If you wish to speak to Coyote Crossing with the consent of the council, we can go back to that if you would like. I thought we were done, but evidently not.
I will be brief. Any objections?
No? Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So on that matter, I did present a resolution, I believe it was in December, for the community, and that was presented to you, Mayor Pro Tem, to the clerk at the time. It was something that I had an effort, to provide something in writing, as you requested in the past, and fully expected this to be on the agenda as a discussion and action item for the resolution. I did send out the resolution to the clerk and to the governing body this week, I believe. It could have been last week, but just so that everyone had that for tonight's meeting. Unfortunately, I don't understand why it was put under my matters from counselors where no action could be taken for the community there. So wondering why it was done that way.
Counselor, I've done some research onto the Coyote Crossing subdivision. I've looked up the plat maps and all of the history with regard to the subdivision in the town of Edgewood. It would appear that Coyote Crossing's roads were never, ever dedicated to the town of Edgewood. There is no documentation saying that they have been or were. So it is at this point that I believe that your resolution is premature and that the residents of Coyote Crossing in their entirety need to pursue the dedication of their roads, which would also include an inspection of those roads for their veracity. If you wish to move that forward, I would suggest that you contact the residents and have them put forward what would that be? Would that be a petition? Mm-hmm. Put forward a petition with all members of the community signing. It would have to be a unanimous petition, I believe. Also, we can ask the roads department to review the roads, their current condition, any needs for repairs in order to facilitate the acceptance of a dedication. Roads must meet standards for the municipality to accept them. They must be in good and serviceable condition. So finding all of those things all together, the dedication can move forward and we can have a resolution for dedication. But until that happens, I see nothing in the documentation from the county, nothing in the documentation from the town that actually has dedicated any roads within Coyote Crossing.
So, in response to that, Mayor Pro Tem, I had submitted this months ago, did not hear back, was denied it to be on the agenda so that the public could come speak to it, was denied debate so that I could provide information that the community provided me. I emailed again, follow-up emails. I emailed again last week, didn't hear back from you. So all of this that I'm hearing right now is brand new to me, and I believe we need to give council the opportunity to discuss and view the information that the community has provided to me, and also give them the opportunity to have public comment before any decision is made. So in effect, what you've done is you've decided for council against my resolution, against the community, on your own accord, unilaterally.
Counselor, I have not unilaterally decided against you. It takes 3 to make a decision in this council. The last I heard, it was 1.
This has not been brought to council because you put it under matters from councilors.
You wanted to discuss this. I have allowed the discussion. Yes, you have discussed it.
No.
You now know what research I have done, and I believe that you have a direction. And I believe that we should move on.
My direction for you, Mayor Pro Tem, and the community is to bring this resolution forward for discussion and action by this governing body. Proof can be given at that time. Residents can come and have public comment at that time. You know, we don't need you just making a decision without even talking to me, without answering my emails, and then under my counselor comments telling me all of this. It's inappropriate.
So is not doing your homework, Counselor. Let's move on. Matters from the Clerk Treasurer, please.
So, Mayor Council, just a couple updates on some projects. We finally did receive authorization from the state to rebid and for the bridge contract and to extend it. So we're in that process now. Hopefully we'll be sending out that bid again, and hopefully the numbers will come in lower this time and we will be able to complete the project. BLM Section 32, we are waiting for BLM and NMDOT to BLM actually has to get DOT some right-of-way certifications, and since we're not the property owner, that's on BLM right now, and we're trying to push it along as quick as we can so they can move forward with it. As once they do, then DOT hopefully will then release the funding for us. Unfortunately, one of the issues we have with that section is the plan that the Forest Service made, DOT will not accept. It was not a stamped engineered plan. It was a plan made by the Forest Service, and because DOT's using federal funds for, what was that called? It's a TAP or FLAP. I can't remember what the acronym was.
I thought it was TAP.
That might have been TAP funding, but it's basically a Fed fund pass through, and we have to follow, DOT follows Fed rules, and stamped engineered plans is one of the requirements of that. So as soon as BLM is able to get the funding authorized, then we're basically going to be resubmitting the plan and having it engineered with stamped, and then we can move forward with that plan, with that piece of property and creating the improvements. Edgewood 7 Trail. Once again, because I think that's another TAP funding one, DOT is in the process of evaluating our RFPs to make sure that we can use our RFP for on-call engineering, so we can use one of our existing engineers for that project. If they come back and say we can't use our our existing engineers based upon our RFP, then we'll have to bring something forward to you guys to authorize a new RFP for design services for that. But that's pretty much where we're at right now with those projects. Our 5-yard dump truck was involved in a little fender bender, so it's now grounded. It was hit by another vehicle when it was out plowing the snow. So if we get another storm, we're down a vehicle for now. The paperwork's been submitted to Municipal League, and hopefully they'll get us some direction so we can get that into the shop and repaired right away. Right now it's got a leaky fuel tank. Speaking of the snow removal, I just wanted to give a hats off to the road department. They did an outstanding job on these past few storms. I think after that first storm, they actually forced DOT to step up their game, and DOT was out here early for once. So just hats off to them. They did a great job. We do have some vacancies. We have an upcoming vacancy with the road department, so we'll be advertising for that one as soon as the vacancy's there. Our librarian wanted to make some adjustments to the librarian specialist job description, so as soon as we get those, we'll bring it forward to you so then we can get that position advertised and get the library maybe not fully open, but potentially doing the curbside and stuff again. I would also like to say that the online consortium collection is pretty robust and growing, so I know we don't have the curbside available now, but if you have the means, please look up the online consortium. I mean, you can phone, computer, any type of electronic device. There are plenty of books to view and look at that way. And I think that's kind of it. I know it's been a while and it's a little bit late, so I apologize. My mind's kind of a little frazzled. That's all I have there for Tim.
All right. So calendar review. Our next regular council meeting is March 10th, 2021.
I have a question for Mr. Torres.
I'm sorry, Counselor, but matters from the clerk is not questions to the clerk. If you have questions, please ask him in writing via email, and we'll be happy to answer
Am I
them.
not allowed to ask questions during the meeting of our clerk?
What question would you have asked?
Well, if you don't want me to do it in this section, I need some kind of section to ask the questions that I have.
Well, it would be nice to have the clerk treasurer prepare for answers to your questions thoroughly. I've seen this activity in our council meetings repeatedly and find it reprehensible that you tend to interrogate people without them being able to prepare answers for you. And I think you need to think about that, Counselor. And I would like to ask for an adjournment.
You're going to adjourn over my question. Let me respond to that.
Go right ahead.
I just gave an example this evening of providing questions in advance to the clerk and to the wastewater treatment
and it worked quite handily, Counselor. And it worked quite handily.
There are many instances where I do ask questions. I don't always get answers, but I do ask many questions, as Juan can attest to, and Carla. So this particular one, I did not have the opportunity to ask in advance because it came up this evening. My question is, would it be helpful to provide the district research and polling information to research and polling, because we districted I want to say it was in 2016, 17 timeframe. So that updated information may be helpful.
Okay.
That's
I
it.
don't, well, thank you, Counselor. We'll take that under consideration.
Thank you.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 There's 4. We're adjourned. Thank you.